Right, I think, say something wrong.
Something wrong.
There we go.
Check,
Excellent.
check.
We're off.
We're okay? You don't need to check?
No, because I'm getting used to just doing it by sight by now.
I see.
So, yes.
So you can tell by sight how terrible it is.
Yes, exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay.
Don't worry, it's really terrible. So,
excellent.
Let's move on.
Well, welcome listeners to the next installment of the Magic Morning Wood. Here we are. I'm Ron.
And I am Clive.
And that's his drink. Psst.
Yep.
And so we're here in the wood today to talk about a couple more movies.
Yeah.
Movies that are traditionally not so popular or well known, and so we have a couple more for you today.
Right.
And
we try and mix it up a bit.
Yes, and continuing our new way of doing things by using. I believe that's an old style news flash.
Yes, it is.
We're very topical, if anything, here.
For you younger viewers, listeners, ask your parents. We have further correspondence.
Oh, wow. Great.
Yeah, from our friend Gino Cuddy again.
Okay, great. Hi, Gino.
How's it going? And he writes in he wrote in twice, on YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah. First one in relation to the last Unicorn episode.
Okay, right.
Gino writes, the reason Rankin Bass produced King Kong Escapes was due to their involvement in the American King Kong cartoon from around that time. It was a favourite of mine growing up, being a huge Kong fan. The theme song is awesome.
Is that a pun? A huge Kong fan?
I don't know. Gino,
great joke, Gino.
Let us know. Don't insult our only listener.
It's good. It's good. It's a huge Kong fan. It's a very clever pun.
I do apologise, Gino. The theme song is awesome. 10 times as big as a man, he quotes.
Great.
There we go.
Okay.
Right? And then he also wrote in about the Waltz with Bashir episode.
Okay, yes.
So I guess he's going through them.
Okay, he's doing our back catalogue.
Yeah, thanks for that, Gino. I love Rotoscope. My favourite animation studio was Fleischer Studios from the 30s. I am also a big fan of that. Mm-hmm. Do you like that stuff?
Yes,
Betty Boop stuff?
Absolutely.
And Betty Boop, my official girlfriend.
Right, okay, Betty.
Yeah, the 1939 Gulliver's Travel is my favourite animated feature. I have not seen that. Have you?
I haven't, no.
I took a look. It looks pretty good.
Right.
So yeah. So there we go.
Well, thanks, Gino. Thanks for listening. And
cheers.
Cheers.
Keep it coming in.
So anyway, before I was rudely interrupted by the old-timey news flash, anything else to add from the news flash?
No.
Okay, great. So back to our new way of doing. Oh, here we go.
Sorry, I accidentally pressed the old-timey news flash music button.
Right. Okay, good. Off. Okay.
Silent mode.
Silent mode. Okay, good. Banner mode, please. Okay, good. So now we're on back to our new way of doing things, which is by choosing themes, and we each choose a movie based on that theme, rather than just choosing a movie. And so, for example, last time our theme was we've done musician biopics, musicals. Yeah. And so for our third theme episode, we are doing food. Right, yeah.
Yes.
So
everyone likes food,
everyone
right?
Likes food, right? Most people do, I guess,
yeah.
right? So
apart from some places where they don't have much.
Right, yeah.
But I'm sure they would love
they
it.
still love food, right?
Yeah,
so,
if they could get any.
Yeah, so...
maybe they could listen to our podcast and feel filled up.
Right, yes, this is a very filling podcast.
Yeah, it's a public service as well as an entertainment.
Right. So should we say both movies up front, or should we make it a...
Well, no, let's...
Because it will be in the title of the podcast.
Yes, but still, let's pretend that we're keeping them in suspense.
Okay.
So we'll jump in with your choice, Ron.
Okay, so my first choice was...
your only choice?
My own, well, yeah. Well, it was my first choice as well, right? So I did have other possibilities, but I had a list of what are movies. So I think about food, and I was brainstorming, things that have to do with food, or have food in it, or have food is like... And I wasn't really sure how much food had to be involved with it, because... I mean, like, let me... think out loud to you about
give me some examples of what you...
So I was actually looked online for lists of movies about food, and they had some other ones. There was movies like Big Night and
Big Night.
Big Night. You ever seen Big Night?
What's that?
It's a movie about a restaurant, like an Italian brothers.
Oh no, I've never heard of it.
It's very, very possible. Very popular
Okay.
movie. Very good. It's called Big Night. That was a possibility, and there's a couple other ones that are like things like that. But then there were very tangentially ones like 9.5 Weeks.
Right.
Which is
okay.
It's not about food.
Yeah.
So, and I was like,
you did kind of go tangential.
Well, I ended up, but that was actually accidental.
Right.
Because
me almost choosing Slade and Flame.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, but it wasn't. I guess. Right.
Yeah.
So, because I was just using the word eat and food and stuff, and so I finally decided on doing the movie Eating Raoul.
Yes, which is a fine choice.
Fine choice.
Anyway, so
and which is help me out, from 82.
1982, an American movie. Yeah,
movie, right? And you got the details there.
About.
I'll do it. So, directed and written by Paul Bartel and
yes.
starring Paul Bartel,
yeah.
and also Mary Woronov and Robert Beltran from Star Trek fame.
Right, I didn't know him, but apart from Eating Raoul, but yes, you're quite right. I looked him up, and apparently he was on Star Trek Voyager.
Yeah, he was like one of the main characters. Yeah,
right.
So he's very famous from that. As well, a couple other Buck Henry makes a cameo, and
there's a lot of little cameos in there.
Ed Begley Jr. and Ian McClurg, and several other people that I sort of vaguely remembered. And so, to be honest, how I came to this movie, I must have seen this on late night TV years ago, when I was like high school or something like that. I remember hearing about it or thinking about it, and I think I saw it. But I don't really remember much about it. I just remember it being kind of funny and kind of quirky, and then it being, in my memory, it was about them killing and eating people, right?
I see.
Which was about what the movie was about, which obviously shows how good my memory is, because it was only at the very end, right? So, so basically...
spoilers, by the way.
Yeah. But, of course, the title is a spoiler, isn't it? Isn't that kind of strange? I was seeing it, I was like, well, why would they have named it that? It's very strange.
Right.
Anyway, before I get there...
I suppose it's not
ahead of myself.
It's not, it's not a twist that the film relies on.
I guess
it would work anyway.
So it's called Eating Raoul, and it's about this couple who are very prim and proper and what do you call them? Preppies.
This is Paul Bartel, the writer director, and Mary Woronov, who
they're very kind of straight-laced and they have separate beds, and they're not sexually adventurous and stuff. And they...
I don't mind a little hugging and kissing.
Yes, a little.
Says Mary at one point.
Right.
They're called the Blands.
The Blands,
Paul and Mary Bland.
Their actual last name is mine. And they have a dream of opening a restaurant.
Yes.
But they're trying to get the money to get this restaurant.
Yes. He currently works, not for long, but he works at a liquor store, right?
Or like he's a wine merchant or something.
On the side, right? But he works in this store, and there's people who just come in and they just want to buy
some
cheap plonk, right? And he's like,
he gets fired because he's giving telling them, don't buy this, right?
And she's a nurse.
She's a nurse, right? And she, and so anyway, basically they fall into, accidentally, in their building there's a swingers party, and then they kind of accidentally fall into the swinging lifestyle and that whole scene, and they realize that they accidentally kill a couple people, and take the money, and then realize that this is kind of a thing that they could do. They could kill these dirty swingers and dirty...
Because the narration sets it up as like it's very hedonistic Hollywood, of the early 80s, and then slap bang in the middle are these two kind of... squares, right? The Blands, the Blands, and it's not just that there's swingers in their apartment building. They're like kind of constantly harassed, right? Because there's all these people coming in and out, and they're always hitting on them.
The wife is almost raped 4 times in the first 30 minutes. Right.
And perfect casting, because I love both Paul Bartel and Mary Woronov were in a whole bunch of movies since I think. He made Death Race 2000, and they were just kind of a great on-screen couple, right? And there's loads of movies that refer back to Eating Raoul that put them in, and they're kind of they're a weird contrast. Like they have great chemistry, but on the one hand, he's kind of like he's kind of like he looks a bit like Rob Reiner or something like that. And then she's just like a foxy kind of sexy chick, right? She played Miss Toga in the Rock and Roll High School, and yeah, she and they're always hitting on her the whole time. But she plays
not hitting on immediately they're trying to rape her every single time.
But she's good at conveying that. I think like she's clearly making everyone around her crazy, like with lust, but she has no concept,
no control over it, right? She's not doing it herself. And so anyway, so they kill several people and take their money, and then this con man who pretends to be like the locksmith comes in and then ends up getting involved,
RAOUL,
which is RAOUL, and he gets involved. It becomes their partner, and he sets it up, and then he ends up disposing of as they kill people, they take the money and split it with him, and he disposes of the body. And through various things happening, they figure out that he's actually selling it to a dog food company and turning the bodies into dog food.
Yes.
And then at the end, they end up, and he has a relationship with the wife, and they end up kind of having an affair. And then at the end, they end up killing him, and then they feed him to their guests at the end. So really, the title "Eating Raoul" is really just is the twist ending of them killing him and eating him at the end, which is so. But the thing is that my memory was them killing him, eating people the entire movie, which is why I chose it. Yeah. And I was kind of like, I was watching, I was like, where's all the eating the people? And
to why be honest, me too, because I saw this many years ago and really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And yes, I think I couldn't quite remember if there was cannibalism involved to a big degree or
right. I thought the whole thing was about killing and then eating them, right?
Yeah,
that was the thing. But
I'd forgotten that they were just taking their money.
Yeah, it was very.
And Raoul's also stealing their cars, right? And selling the cars,
right.
And
so he's making a lot more money than they are, based on even though they're doing the actual killing.
Right. Yeah.
People die very easily in this movie too. It's like
they get hit by a frying pan.
It's just bonk and then they're dead, right? So they go to the swingers party and they're all in the hot tub and he just like throws in a light and they all go and then they all
that's the classic scene, I think.
Right.
That bit's hilarious.
It's
they're all in there and he's getting annoyed with them and he just lobs in this like patio heater thing and he says BAM!
And they go and they just fall over altogether. There's no
there's no flowers.
There's no jiggling or they just fall over.
But it's perfect. It's perfect. It's got a wonderful. I think it's got a wonderful knowing sense of its own ridiculousness. This film, right?
Yeah.
And actually watching it again, I'm glad you chose this actually because it was one of those films I remember really enjoying, and it has a really good reputation, and there's a Criterion Collection Blu-ray, right? But it was one of those films where I wouldn't necessarily have gone back to it.
Yeah. I think this. I remember this. Just have vague memories of watching this, like when I was much younger. So I feel like this probably would have been one of my that I would have gotten around to for the Magic Martin Wood eventually, because it was kind of one of those movies. But I'd kind of forgotten about it. But then when you said food, the word eating kind of eating Raoul. I should try that one. But of course, that ended up being not really about food that much, with the exception of dog food, them wanting to open at a restaurant and then eating them at the end. Right?
Yes. But it's watching it again. What I really appreciated about it is it's one of those movies that really zips by. Like I was watching it and it was over by the time and I was totally absorbed all the way through. Right. I laughed a lot, and I just really like this couple as well.
Yeah, they were funny.
And it just made me think, like, it's not like a life-changing classic or anything like that. But it's
fun.
Easy,
it's fun and quirky, and
it's easy to underestimate how difficult it is to make a film this entertaining. I think. Like, if you think about it, like from beginning to end, there's no slow bits.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's never like, this is dragging or this is a bit boring. It's like dum dum dum. It's thoroughly entertaining all the way through. Yeah. And I think sometimes that kind of almost workman-like or artisan-like kind of approach is really underrated, right?
Yeah.
So I was, very impressed by this watching it again.
Yeah. It was quite a fun watch. I remembered kind of enjoying it, but I just had very vague, kind of indistinct memories of it and feelings of it. But it was still fun. It definitely showed its age a little bit. It's definitely 82, and it's definitely low budget, and it's definitely could use. I mean, Paul Bartel himself is not a very good actor, but
he's not. great. No, she's much better.
She's much better. Yeah. She sells it, but he definitely could use some work. But anyway, it was a fun little quirky movie to watch.
She's a really interesting character in general. I mean, she used to. She was originally a dancer in. Do you know the Exploding Plastic Inevitable?
No.
The Exploding Plastic Inevitable was kind of like the, I guess you'd call it like a review or something. And this was basically how the Velvet Underground started.
Oh, wow.
It was like an Andy Warhol affiliate kind of review.
Oh, okay.
And I think she was a dancer. There was a guy called Gerald Malagna who was like a guy with a whip, and he'd like whip these dancers, and you'd watch the Velvet Underground play, and there'd be she was like a whole kind of I guess they called it a happening back in those days.
Right. Yeah,
so that's how she started off, I think, in like show. So she was part of the Warhol factory.
Oh, okay.
And then ended up. I think her and Paul Bartel kind of started making the connection again to Corman was Corman's New World, right? And the Death Race 2000 was the big hit he made there. And I can't remember if he was in it, but she was in it.
Right.
And then, so there's a lot of Corman connections, right? There's I didn't spot Joe Dante's in it, apparently.
Okay.
John Landis is in it.
Oh, is he? Okay.
But you don't see his face, because I remember the bit there's like a bit where she enters a swingers party or something, and someone bumps into her.
Okay.
That's John Landis, apparently. Okay. Charles B. Griffith, who wrote Little Shop of Horrors,
right? He's
in it. So I think they there's a lot of connections to the Corman New World universe,
right,
at that time. And some interesting, like you said, like cameos and things. Ed Begley Jr. is very funny, as like a
hippie guy,
or someone pretending to be a hippie or something, right? Because he's hitting on her, and then when she doesn't put out, he suddenly gets serious, and he's like, "Fucking hell! I spent all this time acting like a hippie." And yes, because just to clarify, they decide the way they get these swingers is by putting an ad in the paper, right? Is it Naughty Nancy and I can't remember what it was. And she seduces it. They come round and they holy fuck, it's Marion Warren.
And so this is a lot of the comedy of the piece where each John has their own kind of peccadillo or like a quirky hang up or sexual hang up, whatever, and it's her in some random costume or doing some sort of ridiculous situation that this person has particularly finds sexual for some reason,
right?
So.
And it works really well, I think, because it's funny. It's that kind of comedy that it's camp. It's camp.
Yeah, full camp. Yeah.
But camp has a way of getting on my nerves very quickly, if not done correctly.
Right.
But I think this gets it just right.
Right.
There's nothing annoying in here at all. But you can imagine it in the wrong hands being kind of shrill and really just kind of I don't know, too self-reflective or too
right.
But it's good.
I was saying that Paul Bartel himself is not a very good actor, but it almost is better that he's not a good actor, because it sort of provides that distance that I feel like if it was too realistic, if it were like everyone was too good of an actor and you believed them in their character, that it would take you wouldn't buy into it as much, right?
Yes, exactly.
It provides a little bit of a what's going on? What is this strange thing I'm watching? That allows you to kind of enjoy it.
It's a little bit arch in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Same with the Robert Beltran character as well, actually, because he's obviously playing a kind of a stereotype of this kind of
a Latino,
Latin lover
con man,
and the way he seduces her as well. But it's done with just the right dash of
kind of like wink to the audience. So.
It's not overdone, but it's good that they. I mean, if you think about it, there's no real reason they could have just made that character just another white guy, right? There's no real reason they had to go Latino. There's nothing intrinsically.
Well, the exception of the final line, which was actually I think it's
Yes, it was.
Taste Spanish.
Yes,
right?
and who knows? Maybe they worked backwards from
Yeah,
that.
maybe that's
you
where
never
they're
know.
going from. Yeah,
But I'm glad they decided to, because it does add a slightly different kind of tone to it. It got a little bit of flavour to it, something a bit different.
Right.
Yeah, so that's quite good. It's consistently funny all the way through, I think. But the one bit that really made me laugh out loud, and I'd totally forgotten, is there's an ad on TV for the dog food that the bodies go in.
Okay, yes, yeah.
Oh, it's brilliant. So it's basically, there's like a guy in a dog suit, and it's what is it? It's like King's dog food or something like that.
Right, yeah.
Or, dog food, a doggy king.
Doggy King, okay.
And it's basically a guy in a dog suit with a crown on, and his family is sitting around him, and he's put on a spread of this dog food, and I guess the father goes, "Your Majesty, this is delicious." And that's really cracked me up. I thought that little bit was.
It reminded me a little bit of. This is a bit meta, and the audience won't remember this, but the movie that you made, Mr. Jim.
Okay.
The frog interlude was kind of reminiscent of that.
Interesting. I hadn't thought that. Maybe that's where
maybe you got it from. Yeah. So
actually, oddly enough, just to follow that tangent through. That as well, another thing I think that I got there, I didn't realize it at the time, but did you ever see that there was a martial arts movie from with Mark Dacascos called Drive? Remember that? You remember Mark Dacascos, though, right? He was like the... No? Okay. Anyway, and it's like an action movie, it's like an action road movie thing, but for some reason, in that film, characters watch this really bizarre TV show called Walter the Einstein Frog.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be some like genius frog or something. So I think that was
also your inspiration.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of inspirations, I was wondering as well if the dog food thing. There's that movie, The Corpse Grinders from 1971, where corpses get ground up in a machine and get put into cat food. Okay. And then the cats develop a taste for human blood as a result.
I see.
So in terms of cameos as well, like Ed Begley. You got Susan Saiger is also kind of quite adorable as the dominatrix who helps them, get clients. Right. If you remember her character.
Yes, the dominatrix.
She was she's very likable.
Yeah, and it's funny because they show her as the dominatrix, and then just in her home life with a kid and ironing, and it shows like the real side of the dominatrix.
Yes.
It's just put on and stuff. Yeah.
That reminded me of that scene in Shortcuts, where Jennifer Jason Leigh is like the sex call, and she's like changing nappies and things. Yeah. And then Buck Henry. Do you know who this guy John Paragon is? Because I don't. No. He was the guy in the sex store when Paul Bartel goes in.
The one running the sex store?
Yes, the very shouty performance.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah. Apparently he's someone. I'd never heard of him. And I think as well he's...
apparently he was on
Pee-wee's
Playhouse, and he was in UHF with Weird Al.
But I think in particular he's like a Pee-wee protege, I think.
Is he? Okay.
So I thought you might know him.
I don't know who he was on Pee-wee's Playhouse. Who was he? No, I maybe if I saw him.
Right.
And I feel like maybe he's like a... Oh, he was the genie. Oh, okay, yeah. He was the genie in the box.
I don't know.
That's why I didn't recognize him, because it's like a box, and you would open it up, and it would just be this head of a guy painted with blue paint, and he was like this genie in a box kind of thing. So that's why it looks very, very different. So, but I get it.
And Edie McClurg, who again, as soon as she came on screen, I was like, why do I know her?
Edie McClurg has never changed in her entire life. She looks exactly the same no matter what.
But I was thinking on it, and the first thing that, after I looked her up, I realized, but the first thing that sprang to mind I remembered her from was her part in Planes, Trains and Automobiles.
Right, yeah. She was in the 80s. She was in all those, like, Ferris Bueller, Planes, Trains and Automobiles.
Right. And she appears to have written her own IMDb bio as well.
Oh, did she?
Yeah. Because she makes mention of like being seduced when she was underage or something.
Oh, really? Okay.
Like not in a horrific way. This is like it's a passing comical. Because I was thinking, because I was reading her bio and I was like, wow, who has this intimate knowledge? Oh, her. She just signed it herself. Okay. So, yeah. And the other one, well, Hamilton Camp is in there as well. And the other one, very briefly, was Billy Curtis.
Okay.
Billy Curtis was the dwarf who turns up with a Great Dane.
Right, yes.
Who literally on screen for like three,
It
4...
was a sight gag, really. So.
Second, yeah. But back in the day, he was the star of the 1938 all-midget western, The Terror of Tiny Town.
Wow, okay.
He played the hero in that.
Great. Was he the Terror?
No, he was the hero.
Oh, I see.
The Terror was another midget, I noticed Gary Graver was on there as some second unit either photographs or photography. Co-written by Richard Blackburn, who made a really interesting horror movie in 1973 called Limora. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Nope.
It's kind of interesting. And so Paul Bartel died in the year 2000. And I think he probably peaked with this as a director, right?
Probably, yeah. I think it's still on IMDb, like, the thing he's known for.
Yeah, I mean, prior to this, he'd done Private Parts, Death Race 2000, and Cannonball, which was like the proto cross-country race, because Cannonball run after that, right?
He was in Escape from LA and...
Oh, he was in loads of things, and him and Mary Warrenoff were in loads of things together as well. But the stuff he directed after Eating Raoul, I always remember as being a little disappointing. Things like The Long Shot and Shelf Life, and so I think he peaked with this one. I was wondering what you thought of it in terms of.
And did you know how he died? He had
liver cancer.
He had a heart attack after being diagnosed with liver cancer.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, that's like a Job story there. It was like damn,
right.
Liver cancer and then get a heart attack, right?
Wow. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
How do you think this works in terms of something I picked up more this time, I suppose, is the kind of satire element?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if seeing it the first time round whether that jumped out, although I'm not sure why it wouldn't have, because it's fairly well signposted.
right, yeah.
But what I like about this, and then I'll ask you what you think, is it's clever satire because it's not like so basically what I mean is in terms of they kind of represent these really square kind of white people who kill all the degenerates around them, and also in the end the kind of minority figure as well, the Hispanic guy. So basically they lash out at all the minorities around them, and then are rewarded by having a restaurant,
and winning.
But the thing is, but they're so likable. I think that's what I like about this is you're complicit in a way. You're actually rooting for them.
Yeah.
So I think that's what puts it up a notch.
Anti-heroes, I guess, right?
Yeah. So it puts it up a notch, right? So it's satire, but at the same time,
but of course
you're in there with them.
Yeah, but of course the people they're killing, the degenerates, are such like a stereotype, and usually they're not nice people, and they're certainly not shown at any level that you would not want them to be killed.
Exactly.
I mean, they're basically just like items to be killed, right? So I mean, that's why you root for them, because they have the depth, whereas the other ones don't, right?
But that's what I mean. That's what's kind of interesting about it, because in the end, at the end of the day, if it's a satire about that kind of white privilege, then actually normally the way you'd go about that is your sympathies would lie towards their victims, right? But this puts you in the driving seat by making you dislike them as well, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of it's unusual way to go about it, and so you don't feel as if you're being spoon-fed a message or anything. You just have a whale of a time, and then by the time it ends like that, you just kind of reflect, and then you think, oh, hang on, and it's
maybe I learned something.
Yes.
Although I
don't kill people with a frying pan and put them in dog
I don't really
food.
get the impression that it was made to teach it anything. I think it was just sort of.
No, but I think the satire was there. I think it was supposed to be. I don't think that's me reading that into it.
Right.
I'm a hot-blooded, emotional, crazy Chicano, and
are you?
Yeah, and that's about all I've got to say about Eating Raoul. Apart from it did become a stage musical. Right?
Oh yes, I did hear about that.
Right,
Yeah, so did you see that?
No.
Or any bits of it?
No.
Yeah,
You familiar with it?
No,
and it didn't sound as if it
did very well.
Yeah, I think it might have been just hardcore fans of the film, maybe.
Right, yeah.
It didn't break out or anything.
Right.
Certainly not like when we spoke about Little Shop. Or,
Right.
So a good choice to get us started there.
Even though it's not that food related, but it had food in it, I guess, and in the end it definitely...
What the hell? I had a good time, and so did you.
Sure.
Yeah, and I believe you, the listener, if you've never seen Eating Raoul, you would also have a good time.
Yes, so I recommend it. Yeah. Please eat Raoul. Bon appetit.
Go for it. Right. Musical interlude here. Breaking musical interlude.
Let's all go to the lobby.
Let's all go to the lobby. Hang on, this is going to turn into I wonder who it's from. It's Blue's Clues.
What?
Did you ever watch Blue's Clues?
No.
Did you not remember Blue's Clues?
I remember Blue's. I never watched it though. It was after my time. I was a little.
Yes, that's true. I think the only reason I'm familiar with Blue's Clues is because it was on when we were travelling somewhere on holiday.
Oh, okay.
And I think we just watched it in the hotel. And,
I see.
Have you actually ever seen an episode?
No, I don't think I've ever. I know of it.
Yes, it's interesting in so much as they did a British version as well, which didn't work at all. They did a British version of Blue's Clues, which didn't work because I think the guy in the original, I mean, people will know who he is. It was a huge thing. I don't know his name, but the guy who was in the original show, he had this kind of really earnest confusion about him, and I'm sure Blue's Clues must have played to children and stoners.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because he's just sat there in his little house, and every small
Steve Burns.
Okay, and every small thing he has to kind of do, there's like a song and dance about it,
right?
And he just seems so confused, and then a letter will arrive, and we just got a letter. I wonder who it's from. And it always struck me as stoner entertainment, which is maybe what it was. I don't know. Maybe
Probably,
maybe people would turn bomb water brown to Blue's Clues.
Blue's Clues. Why did you bring up Blue's Clues?
Because we all go to the lobby.
Was that in there?
No, lobby. And then in my head it turned to, I wonder who it's. You know, like how some tunes...
Okay.
I'll give you a good example,
connected,
right?
Okay, it was similar.
Yeah.
I see, okay.
The big one for me is this, right? Let's see if you can see it. And I might fuck it up when I do it out loud now, and that's no match at all. But in my head, here we go.
Okay.
Get the motor running, head out on the highway. You gotta move these microwave ovens, refrigerators.
Well, microwave oven.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I guess so. Steppenwolf.
Okay, good. I'm not totally crazy.
I'd have to. I think listed. Born to Be Wild and
whatever that Dire Straits song is.
Dire Straits. The
Money for
Nothing.
Nothing.
Money for Nothing. Yeah, Money for Nothing. Whenever I think of Money for Nothing, I cannot not think of the movie UHF, which we just talked about, which was the Weird Al when he does the version of UHF of that song.
Right. Yes. Yeah. UHF might be an interesting film to one day, because I think it's one of those things that's it's probably not very good, but there's like moments.
I loved UHF when I was a kid. I remember I watched that probably at least 10, 15 times. So I still remember a lot about it, and I remember it being quite clever. But I was a kind of a Weird Al fan. So
it does at least have Conan the Librarian, which is proper funny. I mean, I think anyone would find that funny.
Yeah. I remember things I still quote that movie sometimes. So there's still a lot of good stuff in there. But I'm not sure if it would hold up or not these days. So, but yeah.
Dire Straits for me triggers memories. Not that song is because I think I didn't particularly like the song or anything. But when I was a kid, Dire Straits' Walk of Life was a hit.
Okay.
Do you remember the music video for Walk of Life?
No, I don't remember that song. Actually.
Music
I
video.
think it was originally.
By the way, I am aware that I'm not very good.
Maybe I'd have to hear the original.
Yes,
okay.
yes. I've discovered over the years that what in my head sounds like
exactly
a
the same way.
perfect.
I've done that to other people too. They're like, "What are you talking about?"
You're
and I was like, "Well," and then I played for them. Like, it's this one. Oh yeah, okay. I was like, "But this is what I."
Yeah. Well, anyway, the music video was all like bloopers and gags from like sports, and it was like people being knocked over and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, before like you had shows like that, which was our compilation. So I used to like that. I think we've gone off.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, all right. Is this all part of the interlude? I know.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
So instead of some music, you've
we're back.
Some rambling shit. And we're back for more rambling shit. But this time about
something specific.
Right. So, the second film,
possibly.
Yes, was my choice.
Yeah.
And this was The God of Cookery, a 1996 Hong Kong movie, which I had never seen before, actually.
Okay.
So this was, like you said, food, thinking about food.
Right.
And I went and thought about things. And then I thought, I've never seen The God of Cookery, but I am, we'll get into this. I am and I am not a fan of the star and the co-director and co-writer Stephen Chow, Chow Chi-sing. But in recent years, I've been kind of going through his back catalogue, filling in the gaps of films I've never seen, because for some strange reason in recent years, I've got my mojo back for watching lots of Hong Kong movies of the 90s, which I used to be a big fan of, and then I didn't watch for a while, and recently I've been getting into this again.
Okay.
And he was a huge name, right? So I hadn't seen this before. You hadn't seen this before? Okay. And this is again a comedy, and I suppose a parody of Iron Chef,
right?
And those shows,
cooking shows,
I don't know if people of a certain age will still remember Iron Chef, but
there's tons of cooking shows these days, more than just Iron Chef. I think was the first, but I think there's tons now. Like there's.
But I'm just wondering, because I don't really watch them. Do they still have that kind of approach to that Iron Chef had, that is parody?
I think there's every kind of cooking show.
Oh, okay.
I think they have food. They have the Food Network, so I think they have tons and tons and tons of these guys. I think they're very popular. I think so.
Okay.
I don't really watch them, but
no. Okay, so but Iron Chef was a big deal in the day because it crossed over as well. Right. It was a huge hit in North America as well as
like a prime time thing too.
Japan and Asia, and it's funny because now you watch. I mean, there's a lot of cooking on TV in Japan, right?
Yes,
and it's not even really designated to cooking shows.
No, everything is just
It's interesting in Japan. I think some people might be surprised to the extent that the old-fashioned variety show still exists in Japan, right?
Right.
Like big mainstream shows here, they're a bit of everything, right? There's a bit of reconstruction drama, and then they'll suddenly eat some food,
right?
And then there's comedy and cute animals and all kind of chucked in together. But nowadays, it doesn't seem as combative as Iron Chef, right? There isn't necessarily the.
I don't know about that. I think they're still quite big on the competitive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, competition shows. Yeah, so I think there's. I think there's all kinds of it. You know what I mean? There's
right.
Many kinds.
Because in general nowadays, I don't watch much of TV, but a few years back at least, you'd watch a cooking show and someone would cook something and then everyone would pretty much be in agreement that it was fucking delicious. And then the next dish...
Japan, of course,
and then the next dish would come on and it would be the same.
Yeah.
And it would be like a strange... You got into this weird... I don't know if this... Maybe this still happens. I'd have to watch some TV to find out. But you got into this weird kind of cycle of people trying to express that something was delicious in the funniest way they could, right? Like the way they deliver the oishi or umai, and it just got ridiculous. And any notion of whether the food was any good or not just goes out the window because everything's fucking amazing.
Yeah, everything's great.
So it was interesting just to go to watching this to remember a time where you could be critical, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so it's a parody, and basically it's a riches to rags to Buddhism story.
Yeah. Sure.
Of Stephen Chow Chi Sing plays. He's like a celebrity food critic, chef.
Not just celebrity, he's the god of cookery.
He is the god of cookery, and he is usurped by his kind of business partner, Chow Chi Sing regular Ng Man Tat, behind the scenes. Kind of teams up with this other guy called played by Vincent Koch, who it is a pretty funny name.
He said Vincent Koch.
Anyway, Vincent Koch.
Say it again.
No. But I will mention his brother Brian Schlong. So anyway, Vincent becomes
Brian.
becomes the big. He's the new god of cookery, right? And the scandal brings down Chow Chi Sing, and then Chow Chi Sing ends up kind of on the streets, and he teams up with he teams up with what was her name? Twin Dragon Turkey.
Yeah, Turkey. I think they call her Turkey. Yeah.
Played by Karen Mock with like a makeup. She has like these big goofy teeth and like a facial big scar and stuff like that. And she's like a humble street vendor and involved in these kind of rivalries with like other
food gangs.
Yeah, food gangs.
Yeah.
And
food mafia almost.
Yes, yeah. And there's the kind of rivalry going on between her little gang and another gang about who to be honest, sometimes subtitles on the version we saw, subtitles don't appear for some written stuff, right? Like newspapers, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the grand tradition of Hong Kong, some of the subtitles for the spoken word, I kind of understand what they mean, but they leave a little bit to be
desired.
Although they're far from the worst subtitles on a Hong Kong film I've seen.
Right.
I mean, at least they're comprehensible, right?
Yeah, you can get the idea.
Yeah, but basically there's an argument over territory, I think, towards who's going to sell beef balls,
right,
and who's going to sell pissing shrimp.
Pissing shrimp, yeah.
Which I guess the idea here is
that it's juicy.
It's succulent.
It's succulent, juicy, and it actually like squirts when you bite into it. Yeah,
yes.
I eventually I was like,
yes,
shrimp.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes. So somehow Chow Chi Sing hits upon the idea of combining. So you get exploding, pissing beef balls, which are also extremely bouncy.
Like a ping pong ball.
Yes, and in fact you can play ping pong with them. And marketing these exploding, pissing beef balls, he has a chance. He can compete again in the God of Cookery contest, but his rivals try and have him assassinated.
Right. Yeah.
Right. This is just the basic beats of it, and then he ends up finding himself at the Shaolin Monastery. And I guess combined with Shaolin Monastery and the fact that he learns, food with real heart, I guess soul food, right? When he's down and out and dealing with his street vendors.
Right.
And so then everything is set for a huge Iron Chef type climax at the end versus and Stephen Chow competing. So that's the overall kind of, and then I suppose we'll have to get into likes and dislikes and just particular bits and pieces and as we go. But
and of course, spoiler, he wins.
Yeah.
Of course, he regains his title. And,
right.
And then Karen Mock, the one he had teamed up with.
Yes.
Who ends up being like a secret fan of his.
Yes.
Actually had been scarred because she was protecting his honor from someone else.
Yes.
And then she, at the end, somehow has plastic surgery and then becomes beautiful.
And even
God
intervenes.
She's shot in the face, actually.
Right.
Shot in the face. and then she comes back, but she's not dead, but she has plastic surgery and becomes beautiful.
Right,
so
right.
She goes. Apparently, everyone who's not beautiful should be shot in the face because then it'll make the.
Well, it's interesting. It's one of these things. It's funny how quickly some things change, especially in recent years. I mean, this reminded me of. This is one of those things that reappears in some of Chow Chi-Sing's films. Is there's certain elements of comedy which either don't translate outside Hong Kong. Actually, there's a lot of that.
Right.
Or it just seems really mean-spirited.
Oh, okay.
But then again, it does happen. Like, her character. She even though we're supposed to kind of learn the true value of everything.
Right.
But of course, he can't get with her until she's hot
So
at the end after the surgery. It reminded me of that horrible film, The Hottie and the Naughty. Do you remember that?
No.
Paris Hilton maybe was in it.
Okay.
If I remember correct. And maybe, what's her name from...
Paris Hilton in something that's mean-spirited? No.
And what's her face from the Scary Movie franchise? Anna Faris.
Anna Faris.
I may be misremembering it. Anyway, but that was a horrible kind of mean-spirited film that had very much the same kind of twisted message. But in this context, it's nothing's supposed to be taken seriously. It's parody on parody on parody, right? So it's somewhat less kind of offensive, I guess. Than it might be. But anyway, before we get into what little bits and pieces, because it's all about gags and sight gags.
Right.
I'd like to know just overall, what did you think of The God of Cookery, Ron?
Well, what did you think? First, it was your choice. What did you?
Okay, well...
since it was your first choice.
Right. Well, like I said, the thing with Chow Chi-Sing is some of his films are fucking hilarious, I think, like consistently. I really like Love on Delivery, which is on Netflix. I highly recommend. It's really good. And Forbidden City Cop, I quite like. And then other ones of his, like the Fight Back to School series and stuff, they just, and they're not vastly different. It's all this very kind of broad comedy, but sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And it's very difficult to judge if it's not working because it's not funny or if it's you. Because, like we mentioned, a lot of the comedy is so localized. It's such Hong Kong humor. And over the years, watching more and more Hong Kong movies and stuff, some of that I've come to understand a bit more. And then some of it still just flies way over my head. And then sometimes some of it that does fly over my head, I like it just because it's fucking strange. And then other stuff is the exact opposite. It's just, that's an awful gag, and that's an internationally awful gag. So it's a real mixed kind of, But that's what I love about Hong Kong cinema, especially of this era, is not even just the comedies. I mean, even the other genres are just a mishmash, and just as soon as you're getting bored of something happens out of left field, and you're like, what the fuck? So settling down to God of Cookery, my experience with this one was an easy watch, certainly an easy watch. It was never boring. It kind of kept me hooked all the way through. But it didn't actually start getting funny until about 20-25 minutes in. I think for me, the first 20-25 minutes, I was, it's not annoying, it's not grating, where these things can often be, but not hilariously funny. But then, when they've combined the they make the explosive pissing beef balls, and a character tries it, and then you get a kind of inside look at his head, I guess, as he's eating the balls, and he's running along the beach.
That made me laugh out loud.
So that made me laugh out loud. And then I felt as if that was like that's when I
holding like a
like a scarf.
Scarf.
Yeah, he's just like a look on his face, like he's in heaven. Yeah.
That was good.
Oh, you like that?
I did.
Yeah. And I felt that was the point where I started to get slightly attuned to it then.
Okay.
And then, sometimes in a comedy when something, because that's actually that made me laugh out loud. When there's like a really funny scene, you have this kind of, you're on edge for the next thing after that.
Cut in here. As a tangent, we're talking about things that maybe inspired you.
Right.
That obviously didn't inspire you because you'd never seen it before, but that really reminded me again of Mr. Jim with us on the bicycles at the end. Yes.
Oh yes. Yes, you did have a similar look on your face. Yeah, so sometimes when something's like, or if you're watching a stand-up comedy show and there's a killer joke and everyone's and then from that point on, you're like on this edge of waiting for the other big one. So I think that helps the rest of the film.
Right.
Is that I was kind of attuned to it, and then, I suppose I'll get into bits that I thought were funny, but that was my overall. It got better, and overall it was fun to watch. It wasn't annoying. It was easy to watch, and there were some. I'd say I don't know. I think I laughed out like proper. Like maybe like 5 times.
Okay.
And then there were a few brief giggles.
Right.
And it's not annoying, and I'd put it like mid-level Stephen Chow. So it's not like Love Under or Shaolin Soccer or something. It's not that good.
Right.
But he's done much worse.
Right. Okay.
How about you, Ron?
Well, actually, I guess I was a little bit of the opposite because actually I really enjoyed the first 30 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like the first 30 minutes, I was like, this is really enjoyable. I was like, more movies like this, Clive. Yeah. So, I was like that. And then after about the 30-minute mark, then it started to get a little tired for me. Like it was I was a little bit like, okay, where's this going? Okay, and I sort of like started to wane interest a little bit here and there. Because of course it kept my interest all the way through. Right. But I didn't find myself viscerally enjoying it as much as I did to say the first 35 minutes of it. Yeah, so
it's interesting that point, the exploding pissing beef ball like fantasy sequence. Is that a cut-off point for both of us, but in opposite ways?
Could be.
That's what it picked up for me, and then
that was that was still a high point for me. That kind of fantasy sequence kind of thing. But then I was kind of like, once I started getting into like the Buddhism stuff, and I was kind of like, okay, let's just get on with the let's get on with the Iron Chef, back to that stuff.
Yes.
So I mean, I enjoyed it all the way through. I would say I would say it was an enjoyable watch.
Okay.
So I don't think I disliked pretty much anything about it really. But I'd say that the first 30 to 45 minutes was probably like the best for me. I think
right.
So.
But is that when you laughed the most?
I guess so. I don't. I'd say I laughed out loud maybe 2 or 3 times. Because it takes a lot to make me laugh out loud kind of thing. So, but I laughed out loud at the fantasy sequence, and I don't know, maybe a couple other times I can't really remember off the top of my head. But but I think I just more like kind of snickered, or I smirked, or kind of like I was amused by it kind of thing. So it was amusing. I thought it was clever. He definitely played his part well, and he was definitely committed to his role, and it was. And I thought it worked out relatively well. I thought
right. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Actually, the other recurring gag that made me laugh out loud, I remember, was because he's gone to the Shaolin Temple.
Right.
There's this gag about the 18 bronze men
of
Shaolin.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So. I suppose this depends on how well versed you are in like kung fu films and if you were familiar with these characters. But when these guys turned up, that cracked me up because it well, they look funny for a start.
Yeah.
But then it was the fact that there'd be like a bunch of them would hit someone with like chairs in the background, while in the foreground 2 or 3 of them would just do poses.
Poses and stuff,
And they pulled that gag about 2 or 3 times, and it made me laugh more each time. So that was quite funny.
Right.
And I think that's probably a good example of. That's probably like in terms of like I said, some of these films I think depend on. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that went way over our heads.
Right.
There's probably loads of shit in here.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And in terms of like cameos and things like the woman, the older woman at the end who's the judge.
Right.
Who I liked as well. She was like something quite amusing about
Right,
her.
yeah,
She's
yeah.
the kind of
Yeah, yeah.
cheeky kind of
Right.
when she comes on and does the little dance.
dancing,
and
yeah.
apparently she's like a huge 60s starlet that
okay.
everyone would have known, you know.
I see.
And I think there's a lot of pun and language-based
Sure,
humour
yeah, of course,
and
yeah,
stuff like that.
That we would never get, yeah.
But considering that, I think this is... I don't think you necessarily have to be too versed in Hong Kong cinema or Hong Kong culture to maybe have a good time.
Right, yeah, it was. I still had a good time watching it.
Right, and you're not a huge
I can't
Hong
even,
Kong.
I couldn't even
right.
say I've seen. I think this was probably my first Stephen Chow movie. I don't think I've
Really?
I don't think I've even seen Shaolin Soccer. Or
All right.
Shaolin Soccer.
For some reason, I thought we'd spoken not off air about Shaolin Soccer.
No, I've never,
okay.
never seen Shaolin Soccer. So, so I was sort of new to this whole. I'm sure I've seen something from Hong Kong before, but I can't really tell you what though.
Well, on the strength of this, that you kind of enjoyed it, then I think you would really enjoy Shaolin Soccer.
Okay.
And maybe Love on Delivery as well, which is easy to find on Netflix.
Right.
Actually, Shaolin Soccer might be on Netflix as well.
Yeah.
But, so, just in case there are some people listening who know these things, there are a few more names. Tats Lau, isn't it? He's as Abbott Wet Dream. Kingdom Young, who was in lots of Category 3 erotic movies because she has large breasts, was the fortune teller.
Okay, right.
And there's a cameo from Christy Chung. Christy Chung played... Do you remember he has like a dream sequence about like his dream girl, like school girl when he was younger?
Oh, yeah,
That's Christy Chung, who starred in the film Mermaid Got Married, which was kind of like the Hong Kong version of Splash.
Right, okay.
And she's also in Love on Delivery.
I see.
Liz Kong is around. Yeah, I think that's about it. Some fans of Hong Kong cinema will notice the name Jingle Ma, who was the cinematographer, who who's directed some stuff. Yeah, I think that's about it. That's most of my notes. Did it give you any thoughts about anything, or?
To be honest, I mean, I enjoyed it.
Right.
I thought all about it, but I didn't really know what we're going to talk about today because it didn't really inspire me to talk a lot about it.
Right.
I didn't really have a lot to say about it, to be honest. I mean, it was fun. It was an enjoyable movie. I'd recommend it. I thought it was I had a good time. I wouldn't say it really is. I have much to say about it though.
No. I see what you're saying. Yeah,
it's
something you have to see more.
Yeah,
than...
I thought he was. Yeah, he committed a lot to his role. He was really funny, and there was funny parts with it, and obviously there was definitely like a heightened sense of acting style.
Yes.
Right. You know.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit like kind of. It was very very broad comedy, as you said.
Yes,
right?
and there's like a bit of kind of. Like martial arts and wire works, dexterity in the chopping the food and stuff and stuff like that.
So yeah, it was very clever. Although I think the one thing that surprised me was at the very end, he had to. They sabotage him at the climactic, like food battle at the end.
Yes.
And they sabotage him.
Yes.
And they blow up his stuff that's supposed to take like 2 days to make and stuff like that.
Right.
And so he has to make something in the last minute.
Yes.
And he ends up making this kind of like very basic. Kind of beef,
barbecue pork on rice with a fried egg.
With fried egg, yeah.
Yes.
So that which is the meal that he had eaten. The
first thing Mock had made for him,
after he had his fall, right?
Yes,
so
he'd been beaten up
and stuff, right? So, and but I was surprised that he didn't make like the actual meatballs or the beef, the pissing beef balls, which was kind of the point of the whole movie.
Right,
they didn't even come up at the end.
I guess maybe they'd exhausted all their exploding pissing beef ball gags at that point.
Maybe. Right? So I thought that. I mean that. It was sort of like Chekhov's gun, like why were they there the whole day and then they just ignored it at the end. So that was a little bit like, well,
that's probably the only thing this has in common with Chekhov.
I guess, yeah.
But yeah, so you'd be interested to see Shaolin Soccer, for example.
Sure, I'd watch more.
Because this is one of those things I had slight trepidation because, and this is good. I think this is what keeps this conversation fresh. Is there are certain things I'm never quite sure how you're going to go with them. So
I'm not quite sure how I'm going to go with
right.
either. Right?
So I could
it depends on my mood that day.
Yes, but I could easily see you disliking this more.
Oh, right.
So I'm actually quite pleasantly surprised. But then again, that was a bit of a curveball. I didn't expect the first part to have been the best part for you.
Oh, yeah. Well, so, to be honest, I think I watched it. When I watched it at the very end of a very long day, and I was really tired.
Okay.
And I think right about the 30-minute mark, I started getting sleepy, which is why I stopped.
Okay.
So I think there was an actual division for me. So I watched it and enjoyed it.
Right.
And I think I stopped it, and when I started watching it again the next day at about the 30-minute mark, which is
that would make sense.
So which may be the reason. Maybe I just really liked it because I was just sort of in it, and then I stopped, and then when I came back to it, maybe I was.
Yes, that would make sense.
That could have been why. Yeah.
Because I think it is a film that kind of has its own momentum.
Right. So that probably wouldn't. For it.
And it's interesting in that respect. It's interesting to compare it. There's certain films I think which are like comedies now, which are not necessarily like flat out hilarious, but I like this. They have some good bits, and then somehow a kind of goodwill pushes the rest through. The big example that I always think of, I realized like a few years ago, I rewatched Blazing Saddles.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was quite surprised rewatching Blazing Saddles how not really that funny a lot of it is.
Yeah, actually, I remember that too. That I remember watching it. I think it was that I'd heard so much about it. I think before I'd ever even seen it. It was so famous as that. I remember watching it and thinking like, "This is it."
Yeah,
like,
some real corny.
Yeah, just like like the lighting the fire with the farting around the fire and so. I was like, "This is it. This is what we got."
But overall, somehow it builds goodwill, and then. There was what was the other example? Like actually, I don't know if this would hold up, but I remember when I saw it when I was new. That film. I always get the title wrong. Super Troopers? Is it Super Troopers? The Broken Lizard, the people who made like Club Dread.
I think so, I think that's right, yeah.
I seem to remember watching Super Troopers when it was new. And that again was like, this isn't that funny. But
I remember not thinking that movie was funny either. So
right, but I liked it. Somehow it had, but that may have changed because the subsequent things they've done I've watched have been terrible.
Terrible, right? Yeah.
So I might be off on that one.
Right.
But there's that kind of, I don't know if it's goodwill or something, or you just get enough good laugh because this may not be consistently hilarious, but the big laughs are big laughs.
Right.
I suppose the key one being that obviously we both really liked that. Yeah. So yes, no, I think there might be something to that. The fact that you broke the momentum.
Yeah, I wonder if actual Hong Kong audiences probably would have found other stuff much funnier than we did, right?
I've no doubt. I mean, whenever
I'd be curious what an actual member, like a Hong Kong person from Hong Kong, actually think of this movie, like from like how they would rate that kind of movie.
Right in. I mean, it's interesting though how there's something about Hong Kong cinema that era as well, where sometimes I'm wondering if the bewilderment actually you give it the benefit of the doubt that you enjoyed more. I mean, the number of like films I've watched and thoroughly enjoyed based entirely around mahjong. And I know nothing of mahjong. I don't know the rules or anything. But I'm watching this film, and there's mahjong, and there's also, there's like crazy martial arts mixed in with it, and then suddenly something utterly bizarre happens, and I have no. But the fact that it's not grounded in anything almost makes me like it more.
Right. You don't need to know the rules of mahjong to understand it, right?
So so I'm not. I'm certainly quite happy to watch a mahjong film. Because I've had a good time with so many before, and I still don't know the rules really. But fuck it.
Whatever.
Yeah. So there we go. That was a pretty good double bill then.
Yeah. Food. Yeah. I would say this podcast, this double bill was oishii.
Oishii. This is actually going to mean nothing to
nothing to anyone else who's never been to Japan.
And you can't even see our faces. So fuck that.
Yeah.
That'll be the director's cut Blu-ray version. But now I'm going to impose the producer's edit.
Okay.
And in the end, you're going to get plastic surgery. And I'm going to fall in love with you. Done.
I like food, food tastes good. I like food, food tastes good. Juicy burger, juicy fight. Too late, I drop this time. Teenage good, what type of two? Got my way or I'll eat you. I like food, food tastes good. I like food, food tastes good. Just in time back and eating. I like food, food tastes good. I like food, food tastes good.